Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is KarQ, and today we're going to talk about the dive comp. It's been a popular and very strong composition for over a year and a half, so today let's investigate how it originated, how it evolved, and how you can run it effectively yourself. Let's get started. The dive comp is a bread and butter strategy that almost every competitive Overwatch player should understand and execute. Unlike the GOATS comp, which only rose into popularity in mid-2018, dive has been extensively used and adjusted to some varying degree since the end of the triple tank meta in Season 3. Let's list the hero roster of one of the first and most popular ladder archetypes of dive back in Season 4. This is the DPS of Tracer and Genji, the tanks of Winston and D.Va, and the supports of Lucio and Zenyatta. For almost 2 years, these were the only two tanks that had vertical mobility until the release of Wrecking Ball, and every variation of the dive composition played professionally has had different DPS and supports, but the one common denominator has always been Winston and D.Va. Unlike other tank lineups such as Ryan and Zarya, where you try to play a bit slower, farm ultimates, and set up for a big play such as a Graviton or Earth Shatter, dive doesn't really rely on win conditions like that. Instead, the core strategy of dive relies on mobility, quick decision making, target focus, and capitalizing on poor positioning on the enemy's part. You utilize the mobility and coordination to quote-unquote dive and collapse on an isolated target without any retaliation. Thus, as players master and improve the timing and coordination of their dive execution, the more success they will find. This is why it has been one of the most staple compositions you could run in a coordinated team environment, since it punishes poor positioning very easily and can easily dismantle team setups. Although we haven't seen too much Wrecking Ball yet since he's relatively new and we're in the off-season of the Overwatch League, I'm confident we'll start seeing triple tank dive with Wrecking Ball as a substitution for a DPS slot, or perhaps have him replace either D.Va or Winston in traditional dive. DPS variants included some combination or at least one of the following heroes: Genji, Tracer, Pharah, Doomfist, or Sombra. Genji is fantastic due to his dash mobility, double jumping, and resets. Tracer was another staple for the longest time due to her unmatched mobility with blinks and recall. She could also be independent from her healers, since of course recall can restore some health, or she could blink to health packs, which then it denies the enemies from using those packs as well. Some variants of dive included Pharah, which would often be paired with Mercy back when she just got reworked with Valkyrie, since they could play the Sky Battle and deny space from the enemies with her rocket spam. As of late 2018, however, Doomfist and Sombra have been the core DPS of dive due to the numerous Doomfist buffs, giving him a huge barrier when connecting his abilities, CC, lots of one-shot potential, and insane mobility as players have learned rollouts and roof slides and rocket punch mobility cancels. Sombra has also received a minor rework, giving her infinite stealth, and the mobility she gets with the shorter translocator cooldown made her a very powerful independent hero to scout for information, keep her topped up by teleporting back to health packs, and of course, hacking them as well. I'll be touching more on scouting a little bit later. For supports, the original dive roster was Lucio and Zenyatta. Zenyatta would discord a target and call them out as the dive target, and the Lucio would give the rest of the team the speed boost necessary to reach and dive onto them instantly. As the meta evolved over time since Season 4, Lucio originally had his speed aura nerfed, and Mercy rose as his substitute due to her rework with the Valkyrie and Resurrection capability. Mercy retained the mobility to work into dive by following any of her tanks or DPS heroes and damage boost them to again kill whoever Zenyatta discorded, so thus Mercy and Zen were a core piece of dive for the support lineup for the longest time as well. However, as time has gone on now, Mercy has been nerfed, Ana and Lucio have been buffed, and teams are now opting for Ana-Lucio variants. Ana, with the rise of the new Nano Boost, has been a popular choice because you can build it fast and you can pop it onto the Winston. He can farm his Primal Rage really fast, and just basically her Nano Boost is just too good to give up now since it heals. Now that you understand which heroes are staple to dive and why, I'm going to give you 4 tips and key pointers to remember when trying to run a dive comp yourself. Number 1 is again speed and mobility. They are the core reason why this composition works. Again, to dive a mispositioned and isolated enemy, or to reach the vulnerable enemy backline, forcing the front line to peel back for them. However, in a perfectly executed dive, sometimes the enemy frontline won't even have enough time to react because of the fast nature of it. If the enemy frontline has to fall back like that, you have effectively created space and denied the enemy from making space. Tip number 2, target focus and coordination. Due to the nature of dive, it's all or nothing. If there is no target focus and the tanks and DPS incorrectly dive different targets, you will likely fail, die, and feed the enemy ultimate charge. If dive isn't working because you can't coordinate with your team, you need to switch. This playstyle is heavily built upon execution and timing, so that means don't mindlessly poke forever and take unnecessary damage, don't funnel into a small choke point, be firm, call out who you're going to dive, and move as one unit. Tip number 3, dive is more powerful and efficient on vertical maps. Since dive comps have vertical mobility, maps like Numbani Point A, where enemies often start up on the high ground, aren't as hard to dismantle since you can now reach them, instead of having a grounded tank lineup and losing to defensive setups like Bastion and Orisa, who will inevitably mow you down since you literally can't do anything to them if you're on Rein Zarya. And the final tip is number 4, scouting. This adds on to point number 2, where we talk about diving an isolated target as one unit. Oftentimes you may need some information before you blindly dive into the enemy, or else you'll risk failing the execution. If we take a look at Numbani A as the example again, your Winston and D.Va cannot be blindly diving onto the high ground without verifying who the enemy is running and where they're playing. For example, if the enemy is running a Brigitte, Bastion, Orisa, D.Va, and even an Ana playing in the back blue car, Winston and D.Va are absolutely going to melt if they walk up to the street and leap onto them. This is why scouting is important. The job of the Tracer, who may be blinking through underpass and can call out the team what they're running, or the Sombra, who's permanently invisible and can walk up and relay all relevant information to your team. Once that's established, the tanks can also do something called a soft engage, as in they use their mobility cooldown first and foremost to just gain high ground, jiggle peek around cover to poke, draw attention, and potentially bait out some cooldowns. As soon as the DPS heroes are in position, they can quickly strike since they have a shorter distance to move as opposed to the long, drawn-out street move as we listed before. Remember, the dive comp will always be evolving, with entrance of new heroes like Hammond or buffs and nerfs to other heroes. However, if you understand the idea and the goal of this composition, I'm sure you'll pick it up quickly and climb the ladder. As always, I'm KarQ with the Predator Training Room. Until next time.